This lesson is about general interiors. General interiors are a simple inspection. The problem is that it takes a while to go through every room looking for the 5 elements that you need to worry about. The doors, the windows, the ceilings for any leaks that are coming in from the roof. There's multiple things. The problem is that if you're behind in your timing and you start rushing, you start being kind of casual with that general interior, which is exactly what you don't want to do. I call it the stepsister. Nobody wants to go through every room and go through the 5 elements. Don't make that mistake. So let's get going.
Now I'm going to discuss how to perform a general interior inspection. There are 6 elements that pertain to a general interior. 1, we're going to be looking at the ceiling. 2, we're going to be looking at the walls. 3, we're going to be examining the floors. 4, we're going to be looking at each of the windows. 5, looking at the outlets. And 6, looking at the doors and the closet doors. So let's get started. So the first thing I do is, again, we take out the flashlight and we're going to be looking at all the joints between the ceiling and the wall. And what we're specifically looking for is water stains. When it comes to a general interior inspection, we're trying to see how the elements of the weather are infiltrating the actual building itself. So once we get done with the ceiling, we're going to be looking at the walls. And again, we're looking for any water stains. Now sometimes you may have general blemishes, maybe sheetrock damage. Those are considered more cosmetic defects. When it comes to the wall and the ceiling, we're looking for cracks. That's where the structural issue comes with. All right? Now, when it comes to those cracks, we're trying to see if they're continuous. We're seeing if there's a crack along the ceiling and then along the wall, because that's an indication of a continuous defect. Sometimes you may have cracks between the sheetrock, or maybe expansion and contraction or uplifting of the trusses. Again, that's more of a cosmetic defect. All right. So the next item we're going to look at is the flooring. Again, we have lots of different types of flooring. We have carpet, we have hardwood, we have tile. Now, a carpet can be stained. It may look unsightly. And again, that is the perspective from the buyer. We're looking from the functionality of it. All right? So when we're walking along the floor, what we're trying to understand is the floor level? Is there any unevenness? Is the floor squeaking? Because that'll give us an indication of where we want to look inside the basement in that location. Now, as we looked at the ceiling, and we looked at the walls, and we looked at the floor, we have to test a representative amount of windows in each of the rooms. So let's take a look at this one window here. The shade's already up. We're trying to look to see if the gas, because this is a double pane window, we're trying to make sure that there's no breaks in the seal, because if there was, there would be condensation or staining inside the window. We're going to raise it up. Oh, that's interesting. So we're going to pick this up, and it looks like the spring mechanism is actually broken, and actually we have a broken handle. So we're going to write this up as a defect, and this is actually a safety defect. Why is it a safety defect? It can end up pinching a finger. Typically you don't want to drop the window like that and damage the window, but for perspective of what I wanted to show you here today is that you can actually damage your fingers. Next, you want to take a second look around the window, because it is an opening in the wall. You want to make sure there's no staining around the window, and if there is any staining, all right, what we want to do is have our moisture meter. All right, this is a pinless moisture meter, and if we have a stain, what you would end up doing is showing everybody, one, that it's operating, and that because we're all made of water, we can see how the system is working. Secondly, you want to make sure you have it on sheetrock, all right, because there's different modes. And then what you would do is perform a dry standard. So you would place this device in a location where there is no staining. So we have it up here. All right, and what we're measuring here are, we're actually hitting nails in these locations, so there is no moisture while we're performing this. So this is what you end up doing, and it's what's important is we want to determine if there are any active leaks. Because if it's active, we want to identify it to our client. If it's not active, then we want to tell our client that we want to monitor that particular location. So once we've tested a representative amount of windows in the general interior, you're going to take out your ground fault circuit interrupter, and we want to make sure that each of the outlets are grounded properly. This particular item, this device here, shows with those two lights that it's corrected wiring. So again, let's just place it in here. And that's showing that it's correctly wired and correctly grounded. You want to test every outlet that you have access to. We're not required to move any of the furniture, all right? This is, again, a visual examination. But if you have access to an outlet, you want to test it. Sometimes they'll have those safety plugs inside the outlet. If they're all like that in a room, I do pull them out, I do test it, but I make sure you put it back in there, because if you don't, then you could be liable if there's a child end up getting injured, because initially if the sellers have it in there, you got to put them back because they have it for safety reasons. Now that we've looked at this particular room, this room does not have a door. So let's go to a bedroom so we can look at those those 6 elements while we inspect that room. So here we are in the bedroom. Now those 6 elements are going to be used throughout each of the general interior sections in the house. So once again, we're going to look at the ceiling and we're looking to see if there's any water staining due to the second floor, or possible as we look at the joints. At the eaves, we want to make sure there is no water staining, because what could happen is you can have ice damming, which water would leak into those locations. And specifically, you're looking to see if there's any peeling sheetrock tape, or maybe bubbling of sheetrock tape, or stains themselves. Once we do that, again, we're going to look at each of the walls. You're looking for cracks. And if there are cracks, are there any ceiling cracks? Are they continuous to the floor itself? Again, if they're cosmetic, it'll be at the joint between the sheetrock. Now, let's take a look at the floor. This, again, is a carpet. We're going to be walking along each of the areas that we have access to, and we're trying to feel if it is level, if it's not level. If there is staining, again, that is a cosmetic defect, all right? Now, we're going to take a look at the windows. Again, we have 3 windows. You're only required to test a representative amount. You could test all 3, or you can end up testing 1. So let's take a look at this one window here. We're going to raise the blind all the way up. We're going to again look to see if there's any condensation on the window, and we don't have any, so that is perfect. That means we don't have any seals that are broken. We're going to unlock it, we're going to lift it from the bottom, and then you're going to move your hand away, and this window doesn't fall down, so that's a good thing. We're going to peel this back down like that, and then once again we're going to look around the frame of the window to see if there's any water stains. Let's grab our flashlight. I'm not seeing anything like that. Once we get done with that, we're going to take out our outlet tester. We're going to plug it into here. And that's properly grounded. And again, you're going to test every single outlet inside the general interior for each of the rooms. Now, the last item that we're going to end up doing is looking at the closet doors and the door that's coming in. So let's look at the closet doors. We're going to open up this closet. You're going to inspect the inside of the closet, again, to see if there's any cracks. Now, this particular closet is full, all right? And what you're going to do is you can move some of the clothes around to look around the closet to see if there's any damage. What can be hidden in the closet is wires that are not inside the walls. Maybe they're running wires from the first floor to second floor, so exposed wires is a safety issue. Sometimes if you have a boiler system, they'll run pipes from the first floor to the second floor, and if they're not in a insulation or if they're hot, that again is a safety issue. So we're going to end up testing the doors, all right, to see if they're functioning properly, and then we'll do that with the closet on this side also. It doesn't matter when you come into the general interior if you end up turning on the lights or turning off the lights when you first walk in or at the end. But you have to make sure you end up doing that. And I also make sure that I test the fan. All right, let's see if this is working. And it looks like there is a switch for it. There we go. And there we go. So that works. Perfect. All right. In whatever conditions the general interior is in, I leave it. So for example, if I walk in here and that lamp is in the on position, then I leave it in the on position. The fan was in the off position, so sometimes we can have to kind of figure that out. There we go. Now the last item we test, and this is kind of important, you're going to want to look at the door. Now, we want to be able to open and close the door. And I want to make sure that it actually closes properly. When we perform a home inspection, the general interior actually gives us an indication if the foundation is structurally sound. If you can open and close a window, that means the foundation underneath it hasn't shifted or moved. If you get to a location where a window is really tough to open, you want to understand, is it because of the window or is it because a possible issue with the foundation? Because remember, we perform the outside first. And if you saw a crack on the outside foundation that was underneath a window, you want to say to yourself, when I get into the general interior, into that particular room, I want to make sure that window opens and closes. Secondly, you want to make sure with doors, if doors have trouble closing, you can actually tell if the frame has shifted. So once again, we want to close it. We don't want to see any gaps, any large gaps where it's small on the bottom and large on the top, because that means maybe the door is shifting left to right. If that is the case, then we would say to ourselves, I got to look in the basement because something else is happening. So some of the cues that we have when we perform a general inspection of the interior is cracks in the sheetrock, opening and closing of windows, and opening and closing of doors. And that's how you perform a general interior inspection.
In this lesson, you will learn the standards of practice, general interior, and interior components of a house. This includes doors, windows, floors, ceilings, walls, and outlets. As a home inspector, you will have to visually inspect the interior of the house as much as possible, depending on occupancy and number of furnishings. The interior inspection is defined within this lesson. Although not all items of the interior are covered in this section, they are discussed in other lessons in this module. The home inspector will observe all components of the interior which are visible, describe the method of the construction and material used. The home inspector will, in writing, report any issues or defects found during the inspection and be available to discuss these concerns with the client in a manner to which the client understands. Home inspectors shall observe and report on the material and condition of walls, ceilings, and floors. Observe and report on steps, stairways, and railings. Observe, operate, and report on garage doors, garage door safety devices, and garage door operators. Where visible and readily accessible, observe and report on the bath and/or kitchen vent fan ducting to determine if it exhausts to the exterior of the residential building. Observe, operate, and report on a representative number of primary windows and interior doors. Observe and report on visible signs of water penetration. Home inspectors are not required to ignite fires in a fireplace or stove to determine the adequacy of draft, perform a chimney smoke test, or observe any solid fuel device in use. Evaluate the installation or adequacy of inserts, wood-burning stoves, or other modifications to a fireplace, stove, or chimney. Determine clearance to combustibles in concealed areas, or observe and report on paint, wallpaper, or other finish treatments. Home inspectors are also not required to observe and report on window treatments, observe and report on central vacuum systems, observe and report on household appliances, observe and report on recreational facilities, or observe and report on lifts, elevators, dumbwaiters, or similar devices. There are 6 components of the general interior that the home inspector will inspect: ceilings, walls, floors, doors, windows, and outlets. These components consist in the following rooms: bedrooms, hallways, living rooms, family rooms, dining rooms, stairs, mud rooms, foyers, and enclosed porches. Doors come in various types and styles. There is a vast array of interior doors. For the most part, wood doors are used extensively for both exterior and interior use. With wood, various styles can be adapted. Interior doors, unlike those used as exterior doors, need not to be as strong or heavy since they are meant more for privacy within the home, rather than security and a means against the elements. Many designs are available and can be painted or stained. Areas of concern for doors are: does the door operate? Ease of opening and closing the door. Are the locks on the correct side of the door? The condition of the handles, locks, and hinges. Are door stops in place to avoid damage? Doorways out of plumb. Excessive signs of wear and rubbing against the framing. Uneven gaps between the door and frame due to loosening of hinge screws. Review overall door frames for wear and rubbing, and thresholds should be checked for damage to excessive force or out of square. Remember, always check both sides of the door for signs of damage or missing parts. There are many types of windows, although all windows are inspected the same. Typical types of windows are single and double hung, casement, and awning windows. Areas of concern for windows are: does the window open and close without any resistance? Does the locking mechanism operate properly? Look for cracked, broken, and missing panes. Check for joints between sashes and the window frames. Are any panes loose? Is the window energy efficient? And is there any clouding or broken seals? Floors are probably the most abused surface in the home. Floors can be your best friend when conducting an inspection. If the floors are solid, have no bounce, and are level, chances are you will not find much wrong with the structure of the home, which can't be repaired inexpensively. Floors aren't there just to walk on, they actually tie the home together. There are several types of floor coverings: hardwood floors, ceramic tile, laminate, vinyl, and carpet. Deflections in the floor can indicate signs of foundation failure, beam and/or column failure, deterioration of the rim joist, deterioration of the floor joists themselves, or improper installation, and so on. With floor coverings, as a home inspector, you will want to inspect for trip hazards. When changes from one type of floor covering to another, there should be what is called a transition strip, or threshold. The strip is to hold down both floor coverings where they intersect, thereby allowing a smooth transition. Ceilings are finished in several kinds of ways, but not limited to drop ceiling tiles, sheetrock, stipple, plaster, tongue and groove tiles, and wood. Similar to windows, all ceilings are inspected similarly. As a home inspector, there are a few visual key indications of potential defects. What is the overall condition of the ceiling? Are there any stains? Where is the stain located? Near an inside wall or outside wall? Are there any bathrooms above the stain? And could there be any water plumbing in the area of the stain? Are there cracks in the ceiling? Are they along the joint of the ceiling and wall? In the middle of the ceiling? Or are the cracks sporadic or clustered? Like ceilings, walls are finished with many different materials, although typically the material is sheetrock. As a home inspector, there are a few visual key indications of potential defects. What is the overall condition of the walls? Are there any stains? Where is the stain located? On an inside wall or outside wall? Are there any bathrooms above the stain? Could there be water plumbing in the area of the stain? Could the issue be with the exterior wall covering? Are there cracks in the wall? Are they along the joint of the ceiling and wall, or in the middle of the wall? And are the cracks sporadic or clustered? A moisture meter should be used on all stains on the ceiling or walls to determine if the stain is caused by an active leak or it may be an older leak that has been remedied. There are two types of outlets, 2 and 3-prong. 2-prong outlets are ungrounded, and 3-prong outlets are grounded. Both are safe to use. The 2-prong outlets are older and cannot be used with more modern appliances that have 3-prong plugs. The one essential thing a home inspector must inspect for is if an older home, pre-1950s, has modern 3-prong plugs. The inspector needs to make sure that the newer 3-prong outlet has been upgraded with a ground wire. Sometimes, when modernizing older homes, contractors will replace the older 2-prong outlet without running a new 3-conductor line to the outlet. When performing a general interior inspection, it is important to understand what rooms are covered by the inspection. All rooms in the interior of the house that are not the attic, bathrooms, kitchen, laundry, or basement All other rooms of the general interior are inspected and reported on in this section of the worksheet. That means every room must be inspected for defects of the ceiling, walls, floors, doors, windows, and outlets. The room that the defect appears in will then be noted. Take some time and study the next few slides that include the general interior inspection worksheets. When performing a fireplace inspection, you should do the following 4 steps. Note the general condition of the exterior of the fireplace. Note the condition of the firebox, looking for cracks or missing caulk. Operate the damper. And note the condition of the flue liner. If the liner has a visible buildup of creosote, a level 2 inspection should be called for before the closing. Creosote may be covering up cracks in the liner. Always recommend to your client having the fireplace cleaned before they use it the first time in case of hidden safety defects that you are unable to see. Common problems include cracked tiles in the firebox, loose brick components in the hearth extension, water staining inside the firebox, damper that is broken or not operating properly, no visible flue liner, or the buildup of creosote on the liner. There are 2 types of fireplaces: gas and wood burning. As a home inspector, you will perform a level 1 inspection. Overall, you are looking for defects that may lead to safety hazards. A level 1 inspection includes: visually inspect the front of the brick and hearth. Look at the firebox. Notice any cracks and or water stains. Does the damper operate? Using a flashlight, look up into the flue and determine if there is a liner. Is there creosote buildup on the liner? If you have an enclosed gas fireplace, you will not be able to inspect the firebox or the liner. The only item you will be able to do is turn the fireplace on. Typically, there is a switch or a remote. Turn the fireplace on and confirm that it is operating properly. Study the next 2 slides, which contain the fireplace inspection worksheets.
This chapter deals with general interior inspection. I always call this the ugly stepchild, because you are outside inspecting all the great areas of the house, the roof, the driveway, you know, all that flashy stuff, the deck, and then you're in the garage and you're operating all these buttons, and then you go into the kitchen and you got all that kitchen stuff to do, and the bathrooms. I mean, it's just exciting. But when you come to a series of 4 or 5 bedrooms and a hallway and a stairway, it gets kind of boring. Well, guess what? That is probably most of the interior of their house. And if you decide to make up time and make this just a 2-hour inspection, and you're running around trying to get caught up, you wind up not walking into bedrooms, so you wind up not operating windows, you wind up not looking at the ceilings, and you wind up not opening the doors, the closet doors. Those are the things that don't happen while you're trying to make up because you were behind. That kind of rushing through the general interior leads to all sorts of trouble. When you walk into that general interior part of the inspection, you got to go into each room and you got to look at the ceilings first, operate your doors, check your outlets, make sure they're 3-prong or at least grounded 3-prong, and check the operation of your windows. If you don't do those 5 things in every interior room, you're just asking for trouble. So the general interior is an important inspection only because most people kind of give it a short riff. They can't be bothered with it. They got to catch up time, so they'll look in the door in the bedroom and then they'll walk on. Everything looks fine in there and off they go. Well, that off they go and not trying to open the window is where all the problems start. So check your ceilings, operate your windows, and make sure everything in every room is okay. Thank you.